The kitchen wastewater, as I said, they should not be connected to your septic tank, but runs through a grease trap. Our grease traps are seamless polyethylene units. They're lightweight, easy to handle, they're durable. They won't corrode, chip, peel, crack, unlike metal or fiberglass ones. Comes with baffles and empty connectors. As I said, they come in 50-gallon. There are 50-gallon here on display that you can see. A 225-gallon, 750-gallon. You can do larger ones upon request. Like I said, the cul-de-sac KFC was upon request, and we did it for them. But before I go to lift stations, interesting, when we did our Jamaica seminar, a lot of the plumbers there were very interested in the grease traps. They were discussing with us about if we do any smaller ones. They had us thinking, so that we are in the works of working on a 14, 15-gallon one that can go under the sink inside the house. So while these for restaurants, you put it in the ground, or for a house, you put it outside the house, we realized that there would be a demand for smaller ones that can go right under the sink in the kitchen. So maybe 2026, look out for it. Rotoplastics is coming with it. So, lift stations for the plumbers and the switch people here. Lift stations, we make lift stations which will have your pump in it. It is that the soak away or where the waste has to go is at a higher level than where the septic tank is. Okay. So how does it work? It has a float that is triggered when wastewater enters the station, and you can put one of three types of pumps in. You can put an effluent only pump, which is where the effluent is mainly just liquids, a sewage ejector pump, where you may have small solids up to 2 inches maximum. If your solids are greater than 2 inches, then you need a grinder pump, which will grind up the solids in it, and then it will go out as a liquid or more finer product. Our lift stations have a 50 US gallon capacity, 190 liters. You see a schematic drawing. I'm sorry for those on that side who may be blocked a bit, right? But we do have a schematic drawing of it up on the screen. And this is a depiction of how it works. So your waste goes to your septic tank, and then into the lift station. As you can see, the diagram, the soak away is higher up than the septic tank, or if it is that you have a leach field or something, the lift station will pump the effluent up to that level. Pentax water pumps. We are, as I said, the official distributor for Pentax water pumps, not only in St. Lucia, but throughout the Caribbean. I'm not going to go too much into detail with it here because you're going to get a full presentation later. Also, to the Quailbo smart heads that can be used on the pumps. This technology can help prevent pump burnout because it monitors whether you have water in the line or not. Like I said, my colleagues will cover it in greater detail. And some of you may be more familiar with pressure tanks from before with their bladders, right? We represent Silmet pressure tanks. Then we designed a pump housing. This nice looking device looks more aesthetically pleasing when you have your pump outside your house rather than just pump. It's a pump housing. It has the openings so you can still run your pipes to it. It's available in granite gray, granite blue. Pentax themselves were impressed with this design. And they said, oh, that's pretty good. But we got a lot of queries about, oh, because this design you're seeing on the screen here, and you'll see in there, it has a smart head. So the size of it only was for when you have pumps with smart heads. I mean, besides aesthetically more pleasing, it gives a better finish and will temporarily prevent theft. I mean, if they want to steal something, they'll really steal something. But it looks nicer outside your house. It looks a nicer finish than just the pump there. But the request came in, and we're in the process and have designed a pump house which can work with a pressure tank, so that probably by next year you have both options, whether you have a pump with a pressure tank or you have a pump with a smart head, you will have a matching pump house to go with it. Stable Eltron tankless water heaters. Instead of using solar or tanked water heaters, but we have one on display here where you can, well, don't burn your hands with the hot water, but you can see it working. My colleague Isabel will go into more detail about it in her presentation. So let's get into about septic tanks. What are they? How do they work? A septic tank is a holding tank which provides initial treatment of household or properties wastewater. You see it depicted here our 750-gallon low-profile septic tank. I'm going to have several videos, the next one up, showing how it works. So I don't need to explain, but I think the video is pretty good.
Welcome to our guide on the functionality of the Rhino septic tank system. All waste that goes down the toilet in your home ends up in your septic system. But how exactly does it work? Let's find out how the Rhino polyethylene septic tank treats wastewater. It begins with the flush. The water, full of waste, flows into the first chamber of the septic tank through the inlet. It fills up to the hole in the bathroom wall before eventually flowing into the second chamber. Both chambers fill up, reaching the outlet pipe where effluent flows from the tank onwards into the effluent is the treated wastewater that exits through the outlet. Let's examine what's inside the tank at this stage. Incoming wastewater, sewage, contains solids that settle at the bottom of the first chamber. This is called sludge. Fats, oils, and greases accumulate on the surface of the effluent and are called scum. Because of the baffle wall, most of these solids are retained within the first chamber. The baffle prevents these solids from leaving the tank and flowing into the microbes naturally present in the sludge start breaking down the organic matter through a process of anaerobic digestion. The treated wastewater, or effluent, exits the septic tank and flows through the pipes into a soakaway or drain field. What happens when the effluent leaves the septic tank? It trickles over a gravel bed and enters the soil at the bottom of the trench. Over time, it forms a biome, thick layer of microorganisms that anchor themselves to soil and rock particles. This biomass thickens into a natural filter and controls the flow rate of effluent into the soil. The effluent is eventually absorbed by plants and seeps into groundwater deep into the earth. This process supports the ecosystem as animals eat the plants and humans consume both, repeating the cycle from the beginning.
Right, so that was a video showing how septic tanks on our septic tank works. It separates the solids, reduces the decomposing solids, provides storage for separated solids, and passes the treated waste effluent out of the secondary treatment. In that video, it had a bleach field, but same principle for super weight or onto some form of secondary treatment. So there are three types of septic tanks. From my time here in Hampshire, I didn't come across any fiberglass ones. I can't confirm, but generally the ones here in concrete, and then the polyethylene or plastic ones, which we had for offer. We used to offer single compartment septic tanks, but we discontinued that. But this just shows the comparison of a single and a double, because what we offer now the double. In the single compartment, all the sludge was at the bottom and then the effluent would go. So there was no barrier or wall to prevent some of the sludge or any of it going to the outlet. So with a dual compartment, we have a baffle wall which prevents the sludge from going into the second chamber. And as you see in the diagram here, our 750 gallon also has an effluent chamber and an effluent. And then we have I forget the name right now. I will show it later. But you can check the level of waste in it. So what would happen is the company that would pump waste, they can check it by pulling out this device. I'll show you later, and you can see the level of effort. So you know if you need the pump. You can do it yourself, or the pumping company can do it for yourself. So the tanks that we offer here, we have the Rhino 750 gallon. We used to say recommended for 10 users, but after my meeting with environmental health, they said that we can recommend that it's for up to 12 users. So we're glad about that. We have our Rhino 1500 gallon, which can use up to 24 users. And then we have a modular tank, which you'll see more details about later. While you're seeing 8, but it's 8 plus. Why I say 8 plus is because it's a modular. It has 2 ends and some middle pieces, so you can size it accordingly. So the bigger the tank, the more people they can do. So 8 plus would be for the very basic of just 2 ends and a middle. So let's get into the features of our Rhino 750. It is low profile, rugged 2 chambers with 2 access ports. It can be made into a 3 chamber if required, but then the capacity will be reduced and you will have no access to the middle chamber for those who are going to ask that question who are wondering. It has several features. It has a 20-inch manway cover, 8-inch inspection port, which is wide enough also for the hose to go down to the pump, so you don't have to take off the entire manway cover. It comes with risers, meaning you can bury the tank a little deeper, up to 12 inches deeper if required, so that the top of the tank is not close to the surface. Right now, we always say you don't put in septic tanks in driveways or anywhere where vehicles will be passing to pass any weight on it. While before we used to say, okay, the risers were optional. Now we kind of say it's basically mandatory. You should use risers for all your septic tanks. So you see on the inside, you have the inlet valve, the cover, inspection port, the riser. They come with lifting eyes. This serves 2 purposes, so that when you can use either a crane or fork, anything, you can attach the straps to that, pick it up and place it in the earth. Secondly, as well, too, while we provide installation instructions for both wet and dry installations, these lifting eyes can also be used for after putting in a concrete base, and see a video about it later on in the presentation, that you can pass your straps or cables or whatever through these lifting eyes to help secure it to the concrete base. So they serve a dual purpose. And then we have our outlet. And the effluent filter, which is the word that slipped me earlier, right? Which comes standard with the 750. So you don't have to buy it. Right? This just shows the parts again. So the baffle wall divides the tank into 2 compartments. The heavy solids remain in the first compartment, and the liquid follows through the second, linked through the opening in the baffle. Our tanks are easily transportable and stackable. Don't ask me how I'm driving and in the back at the same time. But our tanks only weigh 340 pounds. All right, so that with sufficient manpower empty, they can be put on the back of the pickup. They're also stackable. You can stack 2 of them so that if you are the hardware or storing it or anything, it saves space and maximize your storage capacity. They're also very strong, right? Our 750 gallon tank will stand about 5,000 pounds of water. So how abroad they do more intricate testing, but we did a simple, quick and dirty, as we say. We put 5,000 pounds of water in the top tank, put it on top of an empty bottom tank, and then monitor it over a few days. Because trying to replicate, you'll have ground pressures on top of the, on top of the tank. So you wanted to see how well it can be strong. Now, hardly likely you'll have an instance where you have 5,000 pounds of pressure on top of your septic tank, but this was a test we did to see the strength of our tank. So the effluent filter and 12-inch risers, chairs marked as accessories, but now really and truly I should adjust this slide to say that they come included with it, especially in this market. So the effluent filter's extension handle, you remove the inspection port, the 8-inch extraction port, you grab it by the handle, you pull it up, you inspect it, wash it off, you put it back in, and then you know whether you need to pump or not based on what you see on the effluent filter. Right? I talked about the risers, so I don't need to really go into that.
Welcome to the installation for the brand 500.
So the same principle applies to the 750.
Before you begin digging, there are some important factors to consider. First, carefully select the location for the pool. Take note of any nearby trees with large roots, soil type, and location of the water table. Also consider how the tank will be accessed for maintenance. The hole should measure 98 inches long, 65 inches wide, and 62 inches deep. It is crucial to ensure the base is firm and level. For a dry installation, begin by placing a minimum 10-inch layer of well-packed sharp sand at the base. Position the tank in the hole, ensuring the inlet and outlet are correctly placed. Before backfilling, fill the tank with 12 inches of water to maintain the same level process. Backfill evenly around the tank in 12-inch layers using 3/8 to half-inch aggregate. Compact the soil thoroughly, avoiding use of red sand, soil, or clay. For a wet installation, start with a 6-inch thick steel reinforced level concrete layer at the base. Add well-packed sharp sand until both layers reach 10 inches in thickness. Place the tank in the hole and fill it with 12 inches of water before backfilling with concrete. Maintain the water level to match the concrete, ensuring a minimum thickness of 10 inches. Remember, backfill uniformly around the tank to avoid uneven pressure. Keep a minimum 6-inch backfill cover at the top and ensure the tank and inspection port remains accessible. Avoid placing heavy loads directly above the tank or within a 10-foot radius. Finally, remember that the Rhino 500 and 750-gallon low-profile septic tank is designed for underground use only. Follow these guidelines for a successful installation.
Yes, so that shows both wet and dry installations. Even the tank on display is 500, it applies as well to 750. I know people talk about, oh, they want to do concrete septics instead of plastic because they can pop up. Plastic septic tanks will pop up because of improper installation. Either they didn't put in a concrete base and secure it, or they didn't do the guidelines of putting in water and backfilling at the same time, or using concrete. Because I know in St. Lucia they have areas with clay soil, and that could be issue where you have high water table. So all our tanks come with instruction manuals. Now, I always stress while I was here on the importance of local knowledge. You would know about the soil types and different challenges you have in different areas. So while the instructions are a guideline, please, the professionals among you, you can use some of your local knowledge to make slight adjustments or tweaks as necessary for installation because not it will not work in every single situation. So we also count on you as the professionals to use some of your local knowledge. I'll give an example. While I was here, we did an installation in Otago for a client. His own was both a primary and secondary treatment. The ground was hard as rock, and he could not put in a soakaway. All right. So with that, we had to put in secondary treatment so that the effluent would be able to run off as it was treated. We could not do one. The soil was too hard; it would not be able to permeate, and so we had to come up with a solution. So, like I said, look, and I was working with a plumber here as well with that too. So, local knowledge, I always stress, is important. Next up, we have the 1,500-gallon septic tank for a larger project. You just can do up to 24 persons. So the small hotels, Airbnbs, this may be suitable. Now, I'm not saying that you always have to do the biggest one. Sometimes you can do tanks in tandem. So, for example, let's say it's a 16 person Airbnb, you can use two 750s or 1500. You just look at the space available. Sometimes, you have to factor that in. So the 1500 also comes with effluent filters, manhole extensions, and filter port extensions. They're made from same dural polyethylene roto-molded construction. They're resistant to cracking. They can last sometimes as long or longer than let's say, a poorly built concrete septic tank. But we have been making septic tanks for almost 50 years now. We haven't had any issues. I can't say, oh yes, it'll be there for 100 years because we are not 100 years old yet. But the same story with our water tanks. Our water tanks have been around for 50 years, and even though we just give a 10-year warranty, we hardly ever, or almost never get returns because our tanks are that good. And so we apply the same thinking and philosophy for when we manufacture our septic tanks. Then the modular tank, which I highlighted earlier, it comes in sections. This is really for bigger projects where you have ends and the middles. You can, if you need 2-chamber or even 3-chamber septic tanks, but this is not generally available for retail sale. This is project related, so you can liaise with Rotoplastics in Lucia. You give them what the project is about, and then we will work with you to size appropriately the septic tank. Now, we prefer, because they're manufactured in Trinidad, this one for now, that it is built in Trinidad, assembled in Trinidad, and shipped off. Now, the largest that we can fit in a 40-foot container would be one with 2 ends and 3 middles. If it is that you can't do, you need it bigger and you can't do tandem or multiple units together, then your project will be a little more expensive because then you would have to agree in the contract to send some of our people up to St. Lucia as well to bolt it up on site, test it, and make sure that it is working, because we don't want any problems with our tank once it's placed in the ground. So that's a service we can provide at a cost. So it's also made from HDPE plastic for greater soil pressure resistance. It's non-corrosive and it's recyclable if required. It's heavily ribbed, so it's very strong. Now, this is the one septic tank we make that you can put both underground and above ground. You saw in the video for the 750 that is for underground, but this one can be put above ground if required because it's that strong. Okay, I have a small little 3D printed model of one next to the strap here, which you can inspect. Unfortunately, the bigger one, which we will kind of ship here, the vessel did not arrive to pick it up in time to bring it here, so I brought a 3D one. Right, but you can see how the principle works. So it prevents leakage of chemicals and gases in soil, whether it's above ground or below ground. So this is why I stressed importantly that we prefer to bolt it up ourselves to make sure you don't have this leakage. If it's underground, you may not know. If it's above ground, you'll see it and then you'll have a problem. So you want to make sure that we stand behind our product.
When choosing a septic tank, it's crucial to make the right decision. Which option saves you time, effort, and money? A rhino polyethylene septic tank or a traditional concrete septic tank? The initial steps for both tanks are similar: location selection, ordering materials, hiring labor, and excavating a hole. For the rhino tank, a compacted gravel bed is prepared. Meanwhile, for the concrete tank, the floor box and reinforcing steel are positioned. Depending on soil type, the rhino septic tank may need a concrete base, but for a concrete septic tank, large amounts of concrete must be mixed, poured, and left to dry, taking up valuable time. While the concrete tank is drying, the rhino tank is installed. With its fittings pre-attached, it's placed in the hole, backfilled, and filled with water simultaneously. The rhino tank is now ready for use. While the rhino polyethylene tank is already in use, the concrete tank still requires wall construction, reinforcement, and another drying period. Once plastered, the concrete tank must pass a leakage test, standing with water for 24 hours. If the concrete tank fails the leakage test, it must be emptied, repaired, and tested again, costing more time and labor. Meanwhile, the Rhino tank is problem-free. After repairs, the dividing wall and roof are built for the concrete tank, with more reinforcement and drying time. All the while, the Rhino tank has been handling waste without any issues. Finally, pipes are installed and the concrete tank undergoes another round of testing. Once all leaks are fixed, it's ready for use, but only after days of labor and drying. When it comes to installation, the Rhino polyethylene septic tank clearly excels. It's ready to use in 24 to 48 hours with minimum material and labor, compared to the 3 to 7 days needed for a concrete tank and up to 3 times cheaper too. Don't waste any more time and money than necessary. Choose the Rhino polyethylene septic tank, built for faster, hassle-free installation, saving you time, labor, and money.
Now, that 3 to 7 days to build the concrete septic tank. Now, the contractors here among us, I'm assuming that's the process you do here. But 3 to 7 days is a best case scenario because one, if you're having rain like we're having for the last 2 days, you're adding time. Two, and when I was here for that, if you're not getting any cement from TCL or Argos, that's a problem. If there's a brick shortage or metal shortage, that's a problem. Whenever they have a concert or jazz, there's a labor problem. So that you're you can easily stretch into 2 weeks, right? So the contractors among us will know what I'm talking about. While and you have to have your plumber, you have to have your mason man, you have to have your wire bender. Is that you just need the excavator to dig the hole, you drop it in, your plumber connects it up, you're done. Right. So you see here that our septic tank costs about inclusive 3768, right? With all the other installation costs, we estimated at about 6,380. An estimate for a basic concrete septic tank is 8,410 EC or higher, depending on the cost of cement, labor, bricks, everything. So it can go up, right? So while somebody got, oh, I can make a concrete septic tank for $6,000. Sure, you may be able to match me on price, but you can't beat me on time. There's no way you able to build a proper concrete septic tank, have it going within 2 days. All right. So while you may be able to try to challenge me on price, you can't beat me on time. And that's the convenience of the plastic septic tanks. Because your project is on hold until you finish the concrete septic tank, tested it properly, while with the plastic one, you can go on. And then another scenario, you build your concrete septic tank, somebody didn't measure the boundary lines properly, and the neighbor come and say, but hey, how come you into my yard and you soak away? What do you have to do? You have to go and dig up the whole thing, condemn it, and start over again. With the plastic septic tank, okay, we made a mistake with the boundary lines. Uh, Somehow it wasn't picked up. Just excavate, relocate, put it back in. Not buying more bricks, more concrete, lime, labor, everything. So that's another convenience there. All our septic tanks come with a 10-year limited warranty against manufacturer's defects. Um, the advantage you have here in St. Lucia, since we have a subsidiary, when we usually ship it to the other islands, all the pipes and everything are inside it, and you have to do minimal assembly. But here, you can get it with the pipes installed already and ready to go. Thank you. Here are some pictures from different installations of some of the different septic tanks we've done in different territories. It's scrolling pretty quick, but you'll see the modular ones. These are in Tortola. Here's a 750 was in Jamaica. Yeah, start over. So our septic tanks are from Trinidad all the way to British Virgin Islands. they're everywhere. And they've proven to be a success. So, moving on to a Q&A session. Do any of you have any questions from what you've seen so far? We have a Shane. We have a extra microphone here. Just raise your hands and indicate if you have a question, and she'll pass it to you. I'll try and answer as best as possible. Anyone? Oh, Jihan. Okay. If it's a Jihan from the water source, which is one of our subsidiaries based in Trinidad.
Hi, so I have a question. I saw that at a pump housing on top of the tanks.
Yes.
What was inside of it? Like a
That was the post air pump, which you'll see it in my second part of my presentation. We represent a brand called High Blow. It's one of the best air pump manufacturers in the world. So of course we have to have the best. So what you saw there was a secondary treatment tank which had aeration in it, which I will cover in my second half of my presentation. And it would have housed the air blow pump. That was to provide protection because that would have been above ground, even though the secondary treatment was under the ground, so that the technicians will have access to it to be able to service it, because you still need to service the pump and check it regularly once or twice a year. So that was the purpose of the pump housing on the secondary treatment. Question?
Harris and Lucia, the 3-chamber septic tank that we normally do out of concrete in areas where it's very rocky or even close to ravines or swampy areas.